Alright, let's do a little guitar talk today on guitar strings. Popular subject. Let me tell you what I use with regards to guitar strings. First of all, number one rule of guitar strings: change your strings, and change them often. It's much easier to play new strings. They're more flexible, they're easier to hold down, and they sound much better too. A big part of the sound coming from your guitar is from the strings and how new they are. So change your strings often. How often should you change them? Well, it depends. If you got one guitar that you play every day, then you're probably gonna wear those strings down pretty quick, and maybe every 2 months. Maybe even a little more often you might want to change your strings. If you got several guitars that you play and you don't play any one of them every day, then you can wait a little longer, maybe more like 4 to 6 months before you change the strings. But you'll want to change them on a very regular basis. And one of the things I do to help me with that is I have on each of my guitars, and right here I put the type of strings, the date that I changed the strings, and also usually the gauge. In my case, usually like gauge strings. So between looking at the date and just the feel and the sound, you'll know when they're starting to get a little bit dull, a little bit hard to play. It's time to change the strings. What kind of strings should you use? Well, there's several types. First of all, standard, what they call phosphor bronze strings. These are light gauge and Diodarios. These are good strings. They're not too pricey. They'll last pretty long, and they sound really great when you first put them on. Nice and bright sound, and they'll last a reasonable amount of time. I also have some here, the same thing for the 12 string. These are called the EJ16 for 6 string, EJ38s for 12. So if you're going to buy in bulk, buy 10 packs of these, so you have plenty of strings around to change whenever you need to. Second type you might want to get is what I have on this Sigma Martin small guitar here. These are called silk and steel. Most guitar strings have a steel core with some bronze wound around them. These have actually silk wound around them, and they give a really nice mellow tone, and they're very good, traditionally used for folk music, for bare finger style picking, and give a very great and very different sound than the standard type strings. So if you have a smaller guitar around that you can use, it's good to keep a guitar strung with a set of silk and steel for those folk tunes. Next, probably in the last 10-15 years, popular type of string has come around called a coated string. These strings have a little polymer coating on them that they put on after they make the string, and it protects the string from dirt and grease, and it makes them last a little bit longer. They cost a little bit more up front, but they do last longer. I don't particularly like the sound as well when you first put them on, because that coating does make them sound a little bit more dull. But on the other hand, a couple months later, they still sound pretty good, and so they do last longer. So you gotta make your own decision on those. I recommend buying a couple different kinds of these coated strings and try them out to see which one you like. and I do use these as well. And then finally, when you get to the point where you got several guitars laying around, you want to experiment a little bit, there's a ton of different kinds of more customized strings out there. This is something you can play with forever as far as trying out different kinds of strings. This is one that I found that I really like. It's called the Alchemy Gold Foss by Dean Markley. It is a coated string, but one thing that they do is they put a gold colored plating on the string also. So these have a really bright, beautiful gold color. Looks like real gold. And these really look good with some guitars. So if you want the looks and the sound and the coated, these are a good choice. I use these on some of my guitars that I like to use on stage, so they'll get a little bit flashier look with those too. So those are just some of the things that I use. I recommend that you try them. A lot of different strings on your guitars and see what they sound like, and try to settle down on the ones that you like. And remember to follow the first rule: change those guitar strings and change them often. Have fun with that one.